I'd like to begin by telling you where I drew my inspiration from when thinking about the job market of tomorrow. So, can anyone tell me what these platforms have in common? What is their overarching feature? You all seem stumped. Sorry? Web-based, certainly web-based. I think the reason I've got them up here is I think of these platforms as information age markets. Certainly web-based, that's very important, and the data that's flying around eBay or within LinkedIn or within Airbnb, and that says nothing actually within these platforms. There's a lot of potential there for connecting different streams of social data, professional data, and so on. So just think for a moment what eBay has done for the retail market. So it's now possible to buy anything from anyone, anywhere in the world, and you have no problem with trusting that person. So there's an inbuilt reputation system. If I, as a seller, try to cheat you, try to steal your money, you will leave a bad review on my profile that will stay with me forever. Now, you might say, why would I, as a seller, not just delete my profile and start over, right? Not necessarily I would keep that profile. The problem with starting over is that you lose all of the goodwill you will have built up in your business. So it's actually in the seller's interest not to cheat you, to try and make sure you are happy as a buyer, to go out of his way to increase his reputation as perceived by the system. And you see exactly the same thing happening with all of these platforms. Airbnb, you don't want people to mess up your apartment because then you will, or they won't be able to find an apartment the next time. And I think the job market of the future has a lot to learn from platforms such as these. eBay has revolutionized retail. Airbnb has revolutionized hospitality and hotel. We have not seen a revolution in the job market. There's lots of data. We're talking about social recruiting, new kind of untraditional management structures, but there hasn't been a revolution. We're not really using the data sufficiently. Now, part of the reason why I feel we need change in the job market is because we are still failing to address some of the key frictions. And for me, the biggest friction is actually building trust. The reason why we invest so much time and effort and use assessments and have internships and do interviews is because, bottom line, it's better to hire 10 mediocre employees than one employee that you can't trust. So we have this kind of cold start problem. We need to find out as much as we can about the candidates, because what if they cheat us like a seller on eBay? So this is a really, really big problem. It goes through everything. This also results in low mobility, because if you've spent a lot of time applying to lots of different jobs or a lot of time hiring someone, it will really take a severe breakdown in the employment relationship before you end it. So only the overall picture really is going to matter. So if you've done 100 applications, the moment you begin an employment relationship, you're not going to think about doing tasks here and there for someone else, which is actually very inefficient, because maybe you're in the wrong position, or maybe you're not doing tasks that are best tied to your ability. As I said, this results in low performance because only the overall picture is going to come out of the relationship. So maybe years of work and interaction with people will be reduced to a few lines in a CV, which is very poor for the kind of reputation system we'd like to see in an eBay-style job market. Discrimination, also a huge problem. This goes back to what we were saying about not using the data properly and focusing sometimes maybe on the wrong traits or the wrong qualities. It prevents access to the job market, which is inefficient for the system, inconvenient for the employer in the long run, and certainly a problem that we as a society need to solve. And actually, the job market is one of the first areas that we can try to tackle that. Salaries are also a big problem. Now, I'm not sure, you're all maybe a combination of employers and employees, and I think employers will always tell you that they pay employees too much, and employees say they're not being paid enough. Which is understandable, because we have no reliable pricing system in the job market. In eBay, if you're selling something, you have an inbuilt pricing system, inbuilt auction system. If you want to sell your chair, you need to look at all of the similar chairs that are currently on eBay, offer a similar price or slightly lower to be competitive. Because we're not sharing the information across job markets on a global scale, we don't have this kind of reliable pricing system, so salaries are an issue. And all of these frictions result in imprecise person-job fit. Now, this is what I think we should be trying to solve, and I'll try to relate, if I can, what I'm saying as solving this problem as the kind of overarching goal of the future job market. Now, assessment is going to be increasingly important. Using data properly, making sure that you're measuring what is important to your organization in the future and what will be important to your organization, and not just looking at performance. So I'd like to ask you to focus on ability rather than performance and to understand that distinction. Now, in order to do this, we'll be using two main types of data, you can say. So if you want to predict how someone will perform in the future, you'll look at their past performance. This is what we do when we look at qualifications and skills and university education and training and so on. Data on past performance in the job market of the future is going to come from a feedback loop between assessing ability and matching a task based on that ability. And you can do it incrementally. You can send out a task into information age job market, so Odesk. At the moment, this is being used by contractor software engineers a lot, but it's a model that I think is transferable across every sector. And the second type of data I'd like to talk about is psychodemographic profile. So this is kind of add a kind of additional layer on top of the information you have about ability in order to measure cultural fit with the organization in a more empirical sense. So this is the feedback loop. Keep this in your minds throughout the presentation if you can. This is the solution to all of life's problems. Those solutions begin with shorter engagements. Because it won't take as long to build trust. You don't need to interview someone and check their qualifications and have internships and so on. If you can see how they have performed or how they have interacted with employers or task posters similar to you in the past, like on eBay. You don't need to kind of check every individual seller. This means flexible parallel working and new styles of working, so people can do several different kinds of jobs, different kinds of tasks at the same time. They can do it in their pajamas at home very often. It means people are kind of more natural in exploring their own abilities and actually self-improving. So you have an inbuilt, so this motivates them to self-improve because they can choose from different tasks. They're not tied into the particular employer. They know that it won't be the overall picture that matters, but it will be their day-to-day performance on task because that will be actually measurable because you'll have data from the feedback loop. And this will contribute to inbuilt reputation system like what you see on eBay. So the important thing to remember is that if you have a reputation system and you know your ability, so you're able to self-assess your ability using the kind of psychometric tools I'll introduce and also using the feedback loop information. So it's not just for employers, it's also for candidates and for people in the job market. You are not going to choose a task that you will perform badly on because it will reduce your reputation as perceived by the system. So in the same way as a seller, you are incentivized to protect the buyer, not to cheat them. As a person, as an employee in the job market of the future, you're incentivized to self-match to tasks, to choose tasks that will be similar or slightly above your ability, rather than spamming the system. This means that you free up the jobs that people accessing the market can do, because it's not someone with high ability doing really easy ability tasks, so not difficult tasks, which will result in lower unemployment, more mobility, and I think freer access to the job market, which goes back to discrimination as well. Crowdsourced pay grades. In the same way that when you're selling something on eBay, you need to see how much other people are paying for it. It will be exactly the same with jobs in the job market. So if you need something done, you need to offer a price that's going to be competitive within the kind of context of everyone else offering the same kind of job. This will mean prices will go down the more efficient the system is, because imagine someone develops a software that does a particular job incredibly well, which used to be done by humans in the past. The effect when you have a feedback loop is that the price will go down because you'll need to pay less and less. And if you suddenly offer lots of money, then no other employers will do that. So it's going to be unsustainable for you to do so. This results in self-matching to jobs, and I think this is the quality lacking on the person job fit side as a problem in the current job market. So actually letting the other side, letting candidates, letting employees match themselves to your employer brand more easily by giving them the tools to do that. So I talked about past performance data. Also interesting data is psychodemographic profiles. So if you have a task where maybe you don't know how people have performed in the past, it's useful to look at general ability, and we're very good at measuring general ability with IQ and so on. We're not very good at measuring specific abilities, otherwise known as skills. And we're not very good at measuring personality and psychological traits in an empirical fashion. So as HR specialists, you can meet someone, you can interview them, and with your experience, you can build a picture of whether they'll fit. But actually, we don't use the data that is available to test our assumptions about the person. So I'm going to introduce some of what the Psychometrics Center does in terms of predicting psychodemographic profiles from digital footprints. Now, we made an app in 2007 where you could take a bunch of psychometric tests, scientifically developed, get feedback, and then opt in to submit your data. Very simple. People loved it, shared it with their friends. 8 million people opted in to submit their data. Using that unique, amazing database of social media and psychological profile, we built basically models. That's the magic sauce, predicting psychological traits from the digital footprints. These are some of the things that we can predict from Facebook likes, tweets, statuses, URL data, credit card data, any kind of behavioral signal. So I can predict your personality. This is my personality as predicted from my Facebook likes. You can do this for yourself. It's youarewhatyoulike.com. Just sees your Facebook likes. And also it can see your friends' Facebook likes. It will show you which of your friends are most extroverted, which ones are neurotic, and so on. Can predict intelligence, very high degree of accuracy also. Satisfaction with life. Can predict political views, religious views, use of language. So because we have Facebook statuses with matching psychological profiles, I can tell you what words someone of a given profile is going to use, which means if you send me a sample of tweets, I can tell you what the aggregate profile of that audience is. This has huge applications for corporate message tailoring and so on. And a number of other intimate traits, including sexual orientation, relationship status. And since we're in Amsterdam, we can also predict use of addictive substances. Now I'm going to do something odd and actually try to profile the audience based on the digital footprint I might have about some of the companies actually present here. So I hope there's someone at least. Can we just focus? So this is a big 5 personality profile of 3 companies. Can we focus on the red bar? So could you please raise your hands if you think your organization is, on average, conservative, well-organized, and laid back? So I'll just use 3 because those are the... So we have 1. So everyone else is disorganized? Or so conservative, well-organized, and laid back. Can anyone guess which company this will be? The red one? It's actually Ford Motor Company, interestingly. So the areas I've circled are similarities in terms of personality profile of Philips, University of Cambridge, and Ford Motor. Now, they're all very well organized. Makes sense, I guess, intuitively. This is based on models built on 8 million individual profiles. So I have no idea whether you feel this is true for your organization. But one interesting area is here. So actually one difference between people who like Philips and people who like Ford, and if you like Philips and you like Ford, then it's kind of you would probably have a good cultural fit within those companies, is that people who like Philips are very emotional, easily stressed. That's kind of neurotic. Well, it's the neuroticism scale, so neurotic has negative connotations, but this is a personality dimension, whereas Ford people seem to be a bit more relaxed. Now, to summarize, this is what we're really talking about here. So information age job market will be more like eBay. It will be easier to share information globally. It will have greater mobility in the workforce because it won't take as long to build trust. So the cold start problem is not as serious, provided that you focus on ability and not on performance. So you can have 100% performance but really low ability, and all you're doing is spamming the system and preventing people from accessing the job market. You, as an employer, are a brand just like any other that needs to build trust and needs to build loyalty. And the way to do that, I think currently it's being done in the wrong direction. Employers like brands and consumer and Facebook and Google are trying to collect as much data as possible because they think by collecting more data than their competitors, they will know their business better or they will know their product better. This is the wrong way of doing it. Give people tools. In the same way as the My Personality Facebook app, we gave people a tool to find out about themselves. We were transparent about it, and they opted in and shared that with us. I think the same can apply in the job market. So remember this feedback loop. Assess ability, match a task to a person of that ability, get some data about how it's happened, do it again, do it in a different market, do it in China, do it in India, do it in your own organization, and use basically the same principle, the same feedback loop, to prioritize where you should be spending time in terms of employee engagement, in terms of training. Are people doing the tasks that are best correspond with their ability, or are they doing something that someone could do better if only you could reach them in kind of digital environment, which you can. It's increasingly easier to find people to do those tasks. I think globally, both businesses are more global. People are plugged in, they're on their phones all the time. Give them the tools to find out about themselves. Thanks very much. That's what I would say.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Are there questions for Ves? Yes.
I don't know if it's very excited or very frightened. One thing I'm interested in, you talked a lot about how you match people with tasks and jobs. And I think most of us here would know that one of the other things that's really important is not just can a person do a job or do they have the ability, but it's do they fit culturally in the organisation. And I'm interested to know whether any of the data that you're talking about can help us identify if there'll be a cultural fit as well as a job and task fit.
I think that the same principles that govern the way people will self-match based on ability, so like I said, trying to find tasks that match their strengths or kind of testing themselves, can also apply to psychological traits. And this is where cultural fit is really important. So right now we measure cultural fit in terms of gut reactions, assumptions, judgments, rather than assessment. The tools are there, they're available. I urge you to use them. If you're using psychometric tests that are non-adaptive, not computerized, you're living in past 50 years ago, don't do it. It's not ethical. It puts people down. They get 20% when they should be getting 60, 70%. You can still adjust the kind of boundaries. So I would say that recognizing that cultural fit is obviously very important. Your first question should be, okay, how do I measure cultural fit? And the answer is psychology. So what are the best tools available for measuring psychological traits? You have amazing bespoke psychometric assessments for your organization and so on. But maybe they're too expensive to implement on a scale, especially the kind of information age scale we're talking about. So use simpler tools, use APIs, use models, look at digital footprints, and basically all of the focus should be on getting applicants and getting employees to assess themselves and then share that information with you.
Any other questions?
So speaking as someone who worked for eBay, it was fascinating to have the marketplace move to focus on something different. Really insightful. Two questions come out of that. So I love the idea of almost a feedback score for performance for each person within the business. Would you see the logical conclusion of that being that we could, in essence, rip up traditional performance management and forced distribution and all those things? Or would you see it complement it? And the second would be, would the danger of this be that people game the system?
Thank you for very important questions. So first of all, I think that kind of HR specialists and so on, well, this kind of environment will demand a new style of managerial skills. So it may be less face-to-face, less person-to-person, but the benefits will come in the fact that you are able to do the same kind of assessment, the same kind of cultural fit analysis on a global scale, which I think will benefit the organization as a whole. your second question about gaming the system. So a good example is Amazon Mechanical Turk. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's kind of, there are 300,000 tasks currently, I think, in Amazon Mechanical Turk. People use it for getting people to take psychometric tests and build new models and so on. That's actually a very small job market, if you think about it. It's kind of 300,000 tasks just for doing tests. The reason people wouldn't game the system, or if they tried to game the system, it wouldn't work, is because basically their ability, so because of the importance of ability and reputation. So if you have very high ability and you are doing tasks that are low ability, you will never be able to move up into the higher task ability, higher paid, higher difficulty, and so on. Because not only are you blocking access for other people, but you're not self-improving. You have absolutely no motivation whatsoever, which means that the prices for those things go down. The more people there are to do a given task, the less someone will be willing to pay for it. So I think that the gaming problem is kind of, if the reputation system works properly, and people are motivated to self-assess and find the tasks that match their ability, it will not be as much of a problem as it currently is actually with people doing jobs that are not necessarily playing to their strengths all the time.
Anybody else before lunch? No? Right, well, thanks, Vess. Really
Thanks very
appreciate
much.
it.